Welcome, organics, cyborgs, blobs, and celestials, to the 200th episode special of an Unearthly podcast, streaming live on the 22nd of March 2017, and featuring episodes that I will not be proceeding to list because
How
there'll
about
be a
and
lot of them.
highlighting our favorites of the
Yes. Yes, we will be discussing our favorite episodes and potential recommendations of modern Doctor Who. I am Bill Sylvia, the Man in Black, and with me are Mad Matt Winchell,
Doom makes me want to kill myself.
Randy Ronston McCulloch,
Always a pleasure.
Aaron Romeo Moon Burke,
All I need is a fence.
and Tim the Enchanter Sheridan.
Ain't life grand?
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think this time everyone was here the last time we had a 100 celebration, right? Everybody's been with us at least 100 episodes now. That's here right now.
Actually, let me check. When did we do our 100th? That feels like ages ago.
That was the parody one where we did.
It was
Oh,
where
yeah.
we redid Series
The Series
7.
7 look back. So,
Oh,
yeah, because Closing Time was the one that we did before that, and that was everybody that was here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the 100th itself had some old faces.
Yep.
But but the main crew that is here now was the main crew then.
Mhm.
And God, that was back in season 4.
Yeah.
And that was only 2 years ago. God, we're prolific.
how the weeks fly by.
Let's see. I mean, that was actually when we started listing stuff by date. in our scheduling.
Ah,
Prior to that, we just had the listing by episode.
gotcha.
So we started what? 2013, I think. No, 2012.
2012 October, because that's when Series 7A started.
Yep. And at that point, we were doing it like every other week. We had no set time. We had,
Right.
and our group changed quite frequently. And then eventually we got into a rhythm.
Yep.
And
we got
then
onto Twitch.
we started doing it weekly.
Then we started doing it weekly. Then we dropped trying to use Fraps because that was a buggy piece of mess, and I decided that we could stream on Twitch.
Well, that was well before, we even got our rhythm.
Oh no.
It was the Mind Robber was our first episode on Twitch, because I remember that was labeled as being an Unearthly podcast live.
That was the 10th episode, and we've been doing it on Twitch ever since.
Yep.
And then eventually we
Except,
figured...
of course, for the occasional GeekCon special.
Right, which we have to pre-record because the internet in the hotel is not possible. Well, it exists, but it's not worth trying to stream on. They're going to try to work on that again, but, no promises. But, then we decided, we eventually got a format and an outline, and we've been following that pretty good for at least a few seasons now. But every so often, we like to do one like tonight where we just take a look at something. We've done, favorite doctors? Or favorite episodes by Doctor?
Yeah, favorite episodes by Doctor.
We've done little bits like that, favorite companions, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And now I
don't think we've done any companion specials yet. We've talked about it a few times, but never actually done one.
I think we did a companion one at some point. I forget what it was though.
Oh yeah,
Anyway.
for the 150th we did Shada. And we used to try to do one of these per season, but that got to be a bit much because we'd run out of topics really quickly.
I think it's more just we had so many things, so many reviews we wanted to get to that we didn't want to stop.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have 26 seasons of Doctor Who to pour through, of Classic Who, 9 seasons, going to be 10 for New Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane, Big Finish audios, a lot of which are very good and worth reviewing. even
And
if we wanted
they
to.
still put out content more quickly than we do.
Yeah.
And we'll probably continue to do so
Well, it
because
means that
we're
we'll be
probably
doing
not
this
going to
till the
speed
end
up.
of time. We'll be doing this till we're all old and gray.
Right.
I'm Randy McCulloch, and we're here for the 90,000th episode of an Unearthly podcast.
It would be interesting if one day we get to the point where we're doing 13 Doctor Who episodes a year, and the other 30 some odd weeks are Big Finish, just because of having exhausted everything else.
It might eventually get that way. I mean, we have our listing of what we've done, what we haven't done, and it keeps getting colored in.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but it's not going to be soon.
No, it's not. Anyway, before we do, we are actually going to do some news tonight because otherwise we're going to have to cover, like 3 weeks of stuff when we come back off our break. So,
yeah,
we're not going to do that. So we're going to do news, and we're going to start out with birthdays, and we have a few birthdays. A lot of them are very big birthdays.
Yeah.
Starting with the 20th of March, the last half of last week wasn't that big birthday-wise, but our first one is Freema Agyeman, who is Martha Jones, turned 38 on the 20th. She is currently appearing as Manita Kaplan. Amanita, thank you. I don't watch the series myself personally. Amanita Kaplan in the Netflix science fiction drama Sense8.
She's also that girl who got turned into a Cyberman in Army of Ghosts.
Yeah, in Army of Ghosts, Doomsday.
Or not a full Cyberman, into a partial convert.
Into a drone.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was kind of her audition, but...
Thank God she's moved on from there.
Yep. Happy birthday, Freema. The next one is actor John Delancey, who played Alan Shapiro in Torchwood: End of the Road. He also voiced Dr. Benton Quest for the later seasons of The Real Adventures of Johnny Quest, but most fans will know him as Q from Star Trek: The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. And he turned 69. He has just come off voicing Brainiac in Justice League Action and is still voicing Discord in My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Happy birthday, John. Moving on to the 21st of March, we have Bruno Langley, who played Adam Mitchell, the kind of one-off companion from the first series. He turned 34. He is currently playing Todd Grimshaw in Coronation Street.
And has recently started reprising his role as Adam with Big Finish. So we'll see how much work he gets out of that, because it's not much of a character to milk. But
yeah, I know.
You never know, because Big Finish does know how to milk.
They might be able to do some companion chronicles with him after he left, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Next one is another big birthday. Timothy Dalton, who played Rassilon in The End of Time with David Tennant, turned 71. Of course, most fans will remember him as being James Bond in the latter half of the 1980s. And he will be appearing in the upcoming movie The Death of Stalin. Next, we have Peter Pratt, who played the Master in The Deadly Assassin with Tom Baker. He would have been 94, but he died in 1994 at age 71. And finally today, we have Mary Tam, a.k.a. Romana 1. She would have been 67, but died in 2012 at age 62. And that's it for birthdays, although also of note would be the fact that today is also the birthday of William Shatner, i.e. Captain James T. Kirk, who turned a whopping 86. Dear God, it's hard for me to wrap my brain around the fact that the Shat is 86.
Feels like only yesterday.
Well, I still watch BBC America shows a lot of classic Star Trek. So I occasionally will sit there and watch him in these episodes. And, of course, they've all been remastered and everything, so they don't look like they're that old.
Yeah, they've all got new CGI and everything in them.
Yeah. So that's it for birthdays. We're going to move on to our episode news, of which we have a little bit.
Great.
Just a little bit here. So we've got... Let me see. We've got some more information on the pilot airing in New Zealand cinemas Should be around April 16th, 2017. There is no date for the television premiere for it, although
it's going to be the same. It's going to be Saturday, or by the time it gets to New Zealand, possibly Sunday.
Well, it's usually broadcast Sundays at 7:30 p.m.
So it'll probably be broadcast then at the same.
Yeah. I think New Zealand usually gets at the same time as Australia.
Correct, more or less. Yeah, but however many, I don't know the time zone difference between New Zealand and Australia. Right. I think it's only one, but yeah, it's basically then whatever the time zone difference is.
Okay, so that's the New Zealand news. And up next we have Series 10 publicity images, which most of which we've already seen.
Yep. This mostly looks like they took these from the trailer.
Yeah.
Just that we get to see them in stills and in,
Yep. This is basically the gallery that I was trying to find a week ago, and failed to find any complete galleries.
And now there is one.
Yep.
Okay.
Compiled here by our wonderful friends at DoctorWhoNews.net.
Yep. There's the skull-faced emoji.
Looks like a group of Vikings. In the second to last row, second from the left.
Yeah. I'm not sure if we know for sure whether or not that's the same episode where they go to 1814 or if it's a different episode.
I don't know. It looks like it might be a sequel to the what was it? The woman who died.
Girl who
or the girl who died.
Died? Or the girl who died.
Yeah, the girl who died.
Because it looks like it's the same tribe, but I could be wrong.
Or at least one very similar.
Yep. On the bottom row, we get a good look at what was believed to be Pyrovillians.
And are now called the monks. They're pretty creepy looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very Nosferatu-esque.
I wonder if this is the next incarnation of the angels.
I don't know.
Well, Moffat can't keep bringing them back, so.
Next version of the angels, shoot me. Just shoot me right now. Just end it. I don't want any more of the angels.
Above that space wheel, we also get a good look at the new spacesuits. I guess they're finally retiring the old orange one.
Those actually look pretty cool.
Yeah.
Those look like they're redressed Star Trek EVA suits, like you saw in First Contact, only like sprayed brown. And
it looks like this is from the Mars episode, Queen of Mars. All right. Well, that title's not confirmed yet, but it may be.
We will call it that until we hear otherwise.
Yeah.
I still want to know what what's his face is doing. David Suchet is doing with the tuning fork.
It seems like he tends to clack it and then says the words, "It's time."
I just want to know. I'm curious. I'm very, very curious.
Right.
There's no previous Time Lord that's ever used a tuning fork like that, has there been?
No.
He's going to cause an earthquake by sticking it in a keyhole.
And we see more of the emoji bots.
And the wooden woman.
Yep, and the giant eye, but those are all directly from the trailer, so I think that's really all we can...
We see something, it looks like one of the monks with a portal, which I missed in the trailer. It's probably one of those flash and you blink and you miss it spots. That looks kind of interesting.
And it looks like the library from the teaser.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if they're doing their own version of, like, Doc Strange, in a way.
That would be an interesting idea.
You see Bill in some sort of distorted star field? Maybe an energizing field or something?
At the very bottom, she's also crying, and we don't know why. So, I'm wondering if maybe Nardal comes to a... No, he can't come to an end, because then what would have... Yeah, no, he said he put his head back to his body, so...
Yeah.
So yeah, it's possible Nardal may come to an unhappy end. We'll have to see.
Yeah.
Because we know Capaldi can't go yet because that's not going to happen until the Christmas special, which isn't written yet. So we're going to have to see what happens. Not much else we can glean from these, so let's move on, shall we?
All right. And for the first time in a very long time, since in fact the original run of the series, the serial Survival, in fact, starring Sylvester McCoy, and apparently, we have from Cult Boxes saying that we will be getting a episode 6 through 8 of the new season is going to be a 3-part story.
Actually, the last 3-parter was the Utopia trilogy in series.
Technically speaking,
3.
Speaking, if you go by production number, Utopia is its own production.
Yeah, Cultbox disproves that. They state that Utopia, Sound of Drums, and Last of Time Lords, as well as Face Raven, Heaven Sent, and Hellbent are not officially 3-parters, even though their stories are somewhat linked.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've always included Utopia with with that myself, but
Survival, of course, was with the Cheetah people. Wasn't the Master in that one too? Anthony
Yes, he was.
Ainley as the Master.
Although really, if you're going to compare, you have to do the last time Doctor Who did a 6-part episode, because that's an episode of equal length.
Which would have been. Did the 5th Doctor have any 6-parters? I think he did.
I don't know. I know for sure the 4th had one.
Yeah, the 4th had them seasonally.
Yeah, although again, they count Trial of a Time Lord as one episode, so.
But that wasn't a 6-part. Either way,
but it would have been that long or longer. So.
Right.
Either way,
speaking of things that longer, we do have the End of Time, which was an episode and a half, and then an episode and a half.
So that's going to be comparable. Not quite, but comparable to that in length.
Right.
Only, of course, you have to write 2 cliffhangers instead of 1.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Also, we should probably note that Michelle Gomez is predicted to return as Missy during this 3-episode stint that they've got going.
Which apparently is Moffat trying to shove as much Missy as he can before he goes, because he knows Missy is a great popular character. That's not surprising me, because we knew Missy was in there like back in the middle of production. And then we hear that she's coming in at the end, so I figured she was going to be somewhere in the middle and in the end.
I'd rather her be in that story than the one with the Cybermen, because I was feeling like the one with the Cybermen was going to be overcrowded. So
yeah, but apparently
if she's
it's
just
Missy.
in that story, I'll be happy.
I have to see how it's written.
We'll have to see when we
Well,
get
I mean,
there.
yeah, that of course, but
the thing is, though, Missy and the Cybermen has been done. I mean, that was,
yeah. Dark Water, Death in Heaven.
Yeah.
Her debut in that incarnation.
Yeah,
So,
I wonder
as far
if
as
this.
stories, anyway.
Okay, I wonder if this has anything to do with the fact that they don't really want a standalone episode like what they had with Mark Gaddis's episode last season, Sleep No More. It was the only single-part episode for that season, and it kind of stank.
It was
wasn't?
not.
It was not the only standalone. There was.
The ones with Maisie Williams were technically separate stories, although I could see why you would want to consider them a 2-parter.
They were connected, but they were not one story.
Okay.
I think there was something else as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. There was. Let's see. There was. The first one was a 2-parter. Magician, Princess, Witch is Familiar. Under the Lake Before the Flood was a 2-parter. Girl Who Died was separate. Woman Who Lived was separate. Invasion and Inversion were 2-parter. Gaddis's Sleep No More was standalone. Face the Raven was standalone.
Oh yeah.
Heaven Sent is considered standalone, as is
Ah.
Hellbent.
Okay.
By the way, the last 6-parter, not counting Shada, is the Armageddon Factor,
which was Tom Baker, end of the end of Key to Time.
Yep.
Way back in the 70s.
79, yeah.
So, wow. Anyway, we'll have to see if they've gotten the knack for writing for that again. We're gonna move forward because
Toby Whithouse supposed to write this, and isn't he the old school, the classic writer that they brought back?
No, the classic writer that they brought back was I thought it was the writer from Survival. Unless I'm mixing that up.
There's
in my
multiple
head.
ones that they brought back.
Did they bring back multiple ones?
Yes.
Oh, no, Toby Whithouse. Toby Whithouse is from Modern Who. He wrote Under the Lake Before the Flood.
He wrote School Reunion.
Yeah, because he wrote the 3rd episode here. Peter Harness wrote the 2nd episode, and Stephen Moffat is writing the 1st episode of this.
So it's separate writers. They're all trying to write it together, which might be okay, but it might be a hot, sticky mess. We're gonna have to see.
Depends on how much they're actually paying attention to each other's scripts.
It depends if the script editor is script editing.
The script editor's Moffat.
Right.
That's the issue.
I mean.
Anyway,
Big Finish tends to do it as a regular thing that, there will be a 3-parter written by 3 different people, and they usually come out fairly well, but they're not edited by Stephen Moffat.
Yeah, and so far, one thing I have not been pleased with is Stephen Moffat's ability to script edit, especially when he's also writing. So we're going to really have to see how that comes out.
The Cringe Trilogy.
Come on, you have one more season to prove your mettle, Moffat.
He's writing 5 episodes. Wait, no, the Christmas special is going to be him too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's writing 5 episodes in 2017.
Yeah, and let's hope he doesn't blow it, because this is your last chance, Moffat, before the Balchinian takes over. Okay, so let's move on to books.
Yes, books. The Rectangular Objects. There is a book that's coming out, will be published the 18th of May in 2017. It's pre-order from BBC Books. It's called A Brief History of Time, Lords.
Oh, God. I actually didn't get that pun when I was making the news.
It is an illustrated secret history of the oldest and most powerful civilization in the universe, the Time Lords of Gallifrey.
It's BBC Books, so it might have some new information, but I doubt it.
Yeah,
it'll this legendary race.
It'll at least compile all the official information in one book, which makes it of interest to me.
The words Time War don't appear in the blurb.
It says it's drawn from ancient records and legends and stories handed down from generation to generation.
So it's not modern Time Lords. It's about older stuff in the.
Yeah, it'll talk about Rassilon and Omega. It'll talk about Morbius.
It'll talk about the other. Oh wait.
No, that's not official information. So they're probably not going to talk about that.
It's written by Steve Tribe and illustrated by Richard Williams. I don't know if that mean anything to anyone.
Not really. It's interesting enough that I probably am going to put it on my Christmas list. But yeah, interesting. But really, did they have to do A Brief History of Time pun?
Everybody writing about time travel needs to do that, apparently.
Yes, but you're punning Stephen Hawking, somebody who can't actually kick you in the dick for it.
Which is why he's going to make a robot set of legs to do it.
Take that.
When Stephen Hawking appears on the side of Skynet and everyone asks why.
Now, Stephen Hawking just kicked me in the dick.
Ultimate power. Ultimate power. Anyway.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's definitely probably at least worth a look through. I'm hoping it'll come to a bookstore so I can glance through it. Anyway, that takes us to our Big Finish news, of which there's a few pieces. Bill?
Yeah. All right. So our let me just make sure I have them in the right order, which I think I do. Yes. Okay. So out now from the Doctor Who main range is Zoltis, featuring the whatever his first season was team with Adric, Nyssa, and Tegan.
It'd be Peter Davidson's Fifth Doctor with Adric Deegan. So
Yes. I didn't say the Fifth Doctor.
no,
I must have thought it. Okay.
you said
My
featuring
mistake.
his first season team.
Okay, yeah, that was my mistake. In the vortex, the TARDIS comes under a form of psychic attack, resulting in the abductions of first Adric, then Tegan. Following their trail, the Doctor and Nyssa arrive under the lurid skies of the planet Zoltis, whose entire population has vanished in strange circumstances. Soon they discover that Zoltis is now the target of treasure seekers, come to scavenge this so-called planet of the dead. New Who name drop? Meanwhile, deep below the planet's surface, Adric learns the earth-shattering reason why the people of Zoltis disappeared, and why they were wise to do so. And Tegan is, quite literally, in the dark, and during interrogation by the mysterious Clarimond. Any friend of the Doctor is Clarimond's enemy, because theirs is a blood feud. Okay. I think that's about all there is to say about that.
What do you think of the trailer?
I didn't actually click the trailer of this one. I didn't realize that all three of our articles had one.
I think almost all of the articles coming out from Big Finish these days have trailers, so it's
seems like it.
okay.
All right. Also out now is the Fourth Doctor, The Silent Scream, featuring Romana 2. On the set of a busy Hollywood movie in the late 1920s, a damsel is in distress. As cameras roll, she opens her mouth to scream and nothing comes out. Nothing at all. It's happened again. The Doctor, Romana, and K9 have arrived in a terrified Tinseltown. A new film is being made and several stars of the silent screen are viewing it as a potential comeback. But it may prove a poisoned chalice. Actors are vanishing and strange creatures stalk the streets. Something evil is lurking behind the scenery. Can the Doctor stop it when he doesn't have a voice? It's time for his close-up.
That's very brave to do in an audio drama.
I know this one. They're the gentlemen. And
yes, I know.
Somebody needs to scream. But I could never figure out how she managed to scream in that episode.
I have to rewatch that episode. It's an old, for those of you that don't know, that's an old episode of Buffy. That basically these gentlemen come to town and they steal everybody's voice. So a good chunk of the episode takes place like a silent movie.
Yep.
With just a little bit of soft background music and everybody trying to basically pantomime what they're doing. Which makes it visually interesting. I'm wondering how they're going to pull off something like that in an audio drama where you don't have the visual cues.
You're just sitting there and it's nothing but elevator music playing for 15 minutes.
I can't take the Girl of Ipanema that long.
Why is that always the go-to song for elevator music?
It's from Blues Brothers. I didn't realize that until a couple weeks ago when I rewatched the Blues Brothers. It's like, that's the origin!
All right, and upcoming in July is Torchwood, The Office of Never Was, featuring Gareth David Lloyd as Yanto Jones. There's an empty office block in Cardiff. That's nothing special. Plenty of businesses go under, clear out, cease to exist. All that's left behind is an empty building, but there's one office block that refuses to be forgotten about. There have been stories about that building, strange lights, funny goings-on, faces pressed up against the glass. Enough to get the locals worried, enough to ask Torchwood to get involved. It's Friday night. Yanto Jones has better things to do with his time than look around a haunted building. But he goes anyway, and it turns out that the office has been waiting for him. I did listen to the trailer on this one, and it seems like it's geared up to be a horror story, so it'll be interesting.
Should have waited to release it till October then.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, it looks like those are very large rats of a rather not usual size in the background.
Yeah, they're not exactly ROUS size, but they're like the size of a small dog.
Right.
Like Chihuahua sized.
Oh, so William. It's William sized. Yep. For those of you who don't know, quick history, William is a 1970s horror movie that got remade, I want to say, like 10 or 20 years ago.
I thought that was Willard.
Yeah, I think that's Willard.
Yeah.
Maybe the remake was named William. I can't remember. I know it started with a W the other way. It also featured a theme song in the original by Michael Jackson when he was about 10.
Yeah, that was Ben.
Oh, Ben. Actually, yeah, there's multiple ones because there's also Ben and a couple other things.
Okay,
There's
maybe those are corgi sized.
Anyway.
Those might be corgi sized rats.
Yeah.
Almost. It's hard to tell for shortening and all that.
I forgot. A rat the size of Chihuahua is just a slightly beefy rat.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
A rat the size of a corgi is actually something I'm mildly worried about. Rat the size of a Doberman? Fucking run now. All right, so that really is kind of the wrap up for our news,
Yep.
which we did in about half an hour, so nice. We have a few minutes here where we can talk about anything freely. Is there anything that anybody's come up recently?
If you want to hear John Barrowman sing, you can listen to last night's episode of The Flash. Doesn't do a whole lot, but...
Barrowman was on The Flash?
Yep.
Are they crossing over with Legends then?
The cast did. It was the... do you know anything about what the premise of the musical special is about, or have you been avoiding spoilers on that?
I haven't seen the musical special. I don't know much about the premise, no. I know what's currently going on in The Flash, but...
Do you want me to describe the premise, or would you rather...
I don't know. Who here actually watches the CW besides Aaron, myself, and you?
I don't really have the time most often. I'm trying to make content every day.
So much trying to make content, so much the world is passing you by.
Which reminds me, I need to still sit down and watch Buckaroo Banzai. I was saying almost every day last weekend I was going to watch it. I need to watch it now.
So yeah, no, I think we should probably hold. Well, then, actually, Aaron doesn't care about spoilers. I know where we are up till now. Most of you know, if you watch, you know what's going on. If you haven't watched, you don't care. If you do care, cut now and turn back in about a minute. So go ahead, Bill.
Okay. So the premise of the episode is essentially that Barry and Kara are in sort of like a dream world. So they're interacting. The musical takes place in their minds, and they're interacting with characters played by Arrowverse actors. Nobody from Arrow, unless you nobody from Arrow unless you count Merlin as being Arrow, but he's basically Legends of Tomorrow now. But there's actors from The Flash, Supergirl, and Legends of Tomorrow playing one-off characters for the sake of the episode.
Okay.
There's really no connection to their normal characters.
Okay. So that's going to be interesting. I knew Barrowman could sing, actually, because he's done little bits for things like America's Got Talent and other stuff. Heck, we know David Tennant and Catherine Tate could sing just because that bit they did at the end of Russell T Davies's run at the after party, the Ballad of Russell and Julie. If you don't know what I'm talking about, YouTube it's out there.
Okay.
It was just a little bit they did for the big going away party.
But yeah, the main thing the episode reminded me of was I think I know Star Trek Next Generation, the holodeck episodes, where where the characters in the past would just randomly look like members of the crew,
or where Cisco goes into the wormhole and talk to the wormhole aliens, but they all take things from various characters in Cisco's life.
No, I haven't seen that.
Something else does that too. I'm trying to remember what other show I've seen recently that's been doing that kind of thing. Oh, well, actually, The Flash does it all the time when you enter the Speed Force.
Right. Oh yeah, the Speed Force too.
Yeah, that reminded me of being very Deep Space Nine-esque. Just okay, so yeah, that's cool. Last week I mentioned that Samurai Jack was back and it's darker. It kind of proved that with this week's. It's really gotten this is not for kids anymore. As various things came up, such as contemplating suicide, and also the fact that you actually see Jack kill a person, and it involves blood. Something that the old series kind of subverted by having whenever Jack killed something, it was a robot and it spurted oil. But mind you, that's the difference from being a afternoon cartoon and a Adult Swim night show. But it's also the fact that Genndy Tartakovsky is involving continuity, something he very rarely did in the original Jack. In fact, we never really saw any till the fourth season. And then it was really only in passing. But here, this is going almost serial style. So he's showing that he's learned much in his last 10 years.
That and TV trends have changed in the past 10 years because I think not everything was episodic, but I think most of what you watched, what you would have turned on and seen on the TV at that time, was very episodic.
Depends on what it
now,
was.
I think there's a little bit more of a trend toward things being serialized.
It also depends on what you're going for. If you look at children's television, it's gone the opposite direction. Everything is very non-episodic and mostly nonsense. For instance, Teen Titans Go is no continuity whatsoever.
Then and again, I've thought about it as I said that. I'm like, it might also just be that the things that I've been geared toward have changed, and that it seems to me like a trend, but it's actually not.
And you look at what usually airs on Adult Swim, and it's mostly non-episodic nonsense idiocy.
Yeah.
This is in their Toonami block, which is normally showing anime, and anime does have.
And anime was always, at least the ones on Toonami that I watched, were always serialized.
They're serialized or they're formulaic. I mean, if you look at things like Sailor Moon is a formula show. And it occasionally would break out of that formula, but it was almost, you could always tell where you were watching an episode by what was going on. The same holds very much true for Power Rangers and Sentai shows.
Yeah.
You can almost set your watch by when they're summoning their Zords, that kind of thing. And those are formula shows, and there's a lot of formula shows in anime. But the shows meant for slightly older audiences tend to be more. And that's something that the big, anime craze did bring over into mainstream television. We are seeing more serialized shows, things like Arrow, things like that. Although it actually started before the craze, because it's actually probably Joss Whedon that brought that to the fore. Joss Whedon and later seasons of Deep Space Nine. But I would say it was more Joss Whedon. We're seeing the influence of Buffy on modern television. Which, is not a bad thing. Doctor Who is kind of quasi-serial because there is somewhat of an ongoing plot. If you look at like Series 6, as much as I hate Series 6, you do see a bit of an ongoing plot, but it's almost an ongoing subplot.
It tends to vary season to season how big the season plot is.
Mm-hmm.
With shows like Arrow, it's very much the plot of the season is the plot of the show, and anything else that's going on is subplots. With Buffy, what was going on with the season was a subplot. There were the big episode notes, but things would also feed in that's feeding to the season plot, even more so than Doctor Who. But they've all contributed to the fact that we now get shows like Arrow and Gotham and things like that, which are very highly...
It's interesting we're talking about Buffy now. We were talking about The Gentleman before, because every time I watch that episode, it's a little jarring because it seems, even though there's actually are plot developments in that, it feels like more of a filler episode than anything else, like immediately preceding or following it. Although it actually does kind of serve the plot, it's just kind of weird episode.
And it was billed as an odd episode when it came out. I remember when it came out. But yeah, it's the same thing of shows that had that. That's the trend for primetime television. And there have been other things that have contributed to that. 24 was a big thing that helped with the whole serializing thing. There's been a lot of stuff that's done that. It's just so interesting to see that become the mainstream, whereas you look at these older shows like Star Trek The Next Generation, and they're all, one-shot episodes with an occasional sequel episode. And you're like, wow, that was TV back then, and this is TV now. Which would I rather watch? Can you guys still hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I had a Windows alert come up, and I wasn't sure if it had interrupted my mic. Yeah, that's interesting. But however, speaking of the past, and also because I do not know how long this is going to take, let's go ahead and start what we're doing this evening, and that is we're going to rank each of our favorite shows in each of the 9 series of Doctor Who.
Nobody wants to do a 5-minute challenge for all of New Who.
The Doctor travels through time and space. He meets a lot of people, takes on a lot of companions, and fights a lot of bad guys. And he dies a lot, but keeps coming back. The end.
Well, if he keeps coming back, that's not the end.
Well, he keeps coming back, but changing his pace. But no, that's the end of the summary. This is the end of our story, the end. Yeah. But, it's very hard to, in any length of time, to describe what has gone on in 9 seasons of Doctor Who, much less...
That's over 100 episodes, so yeah.
Much less 35 if you count the classic Who series. Mm-hmm. Jesus Christ, that is a lot of stuff. There's a reason that Doctor Who's in the Guinness Book of World Records is the longest running science fiction show now. I think it might actually be in the winning now for longest drama.
Is that by years or episodes?
Both.
Oh. Yeah, that's probably right.
I don't know if it's number in years, episodes, and longest amount of footage in minutes,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's winning on all aspects at this. It beats out the entirety of the Star Trek franchise by far.
Mm-hmm.
The only things that come close to it or beat it are long-running soap operas.
I remember seeing something about Smallville having a record, but that might have been for American show.
Yeah.
Because obviously it didn't run more consecutive seasons than
No,
classic
it only ran 10 seasons domestic.
So it didn't beat Classic Who. It's still ahead of New Who. For now.
But about to change.
Yeah, I don't
that.
see anything about it having any world records or anything.
So that might have been something like that was only taking American shows into account, wherever
Yeah.
I saw it mentioned.
It did set a WB record as the highest rating premiere, but that's again something that Doctor Who wouldn't have been in.
Yeah.
So somebody who's saying that was obviously a Smallville fan who was just taking, their section of the world into thinking. But no, it's not in Guinness. Doctor Who has a place in the Guinness Book of World Records as the longest science fiction series. And it can take that to the bank. And like I said, it's in the contention as long as it keeps going for the world's longest drama series. It is only beat at this point, like I said, for some of these soap operas that have been around since like the black and white days.
Yeah,
like
because
radio.
I seem to recall Coronation Street had that title last time I checked.
I think that's still going. So as long as that is, as long as Coronation Street is still going, it will never have the longest drama. And Coronation Street started in 1960, so it had Doctor Who beat by 3 years, and I don't think it's ever taken a production break. Nope. So Doctor Who would have quite a bit to catch up on that. But anyway, we've gone sideways. Yeah. This is us. We go sideways. Anyway, so what we are going to do is we are going to go by series by series and discuss. Each of us are going to list our favorite episodes, and then we're going to talk about why. And of course, some of us are going to have the same thing, because there are some episodes that are, some series that there's only, a couple of shining lights, and then there's some that it's really hard decision because there's so many choices. Oddly enough, we all have placed our list prior to the episode. And glancing through it, none of us have a series where all of us said the same thing.
I think the most we have is 3 people agreeing in one season.
Something like that.
And that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we're going to start with Series 1, Christopher Eccleston, 2005. For this, we include Rose, Departing of the Ways. So, Bill, what was your choice?
I have to go with Dalek. The performances in that and the tension were just outstanding.
Okay. Tim, your choice?
Mine was The Empty Child / The Doctor Dances. That was by far Christopher Eccleston's best performance as the Doctor, and I think it was one of the most well-written, paced episodes of the whole series.
All right. Aaron?
I'm going to have to agree with Tim and go with The Empty Child and Dr. Dances. Creepy, atmospheric, but overall with a very happy ending. Kind of a shining moment in the darkness, if you will. And there's Captain Jack.
All right.
Him.
Matt?
I chose Bad Wolf, The Parting of the Ways. I feel like it's the perfect end cap for the season. It contained little tidbits of everything almost throughout the beginning of the season, and this kind of put end cap on it, temporarily speaking, for the end of the season.
Okay. I, like Bill, chose Dalek. And I can tell you, for me, it was a toss-up between Dalek and Empty Child, Dr. Dances, but Dalek edged it out. And for me, it was the first episode in the first series where you fully came to the grips that Doctor Who was back. I mean, before this you had Rose, which was a mediocre start. You had End of the World, which was good, but it felt more zany and wacky and not really Who-like. It felt more like it was written by Douglas Adams for one of Douglas Adams's worlds. Then you had Unquiet Dead, which felt like a Doctor Who episode, but a mid-level, mediocre Doctor Who episode. And then you had Aliens of London, World War III, which was crap. And at that point, I was going to get another episode like this. I'm kind of done with it. I would mark the series off as a failure. And then we got Dalek. Dalek was very well written. Dalek had the Daleks, which was unbelievably cool. And in mine, I thought Eccleston's acting was actually better in Dalek than it was in Empty Child, The Doctor Dances. Just those scenes where he interacted with the Dalek in particular, where you would see him go from happy to almost vacant PTSD look in a drop of a hat were just unbelievable.
When I first started watching Doctor Who, I think I was told watch a certain amount of episodes. I think I was told to skip Aliens in London, World War II, or World War III. I didn't skip any because that's not how I watch shows, but I was told to watch as far as Dalek before deciding whether or not I was going to become a fan of the show and watch everything or quit. And Dalek definitely had me hooked. I was not about to quit after that.
Mm-hmm. It was, for me, it was really a turning point of the show, and it made everything. And like I said, The Empty Child Doctor Dances is also one of my favorites because it has that level of creepy. It's one of the ones that I made the mistake of watching at 3 a.m. with the lights out in my bedroom and regretted it the rest of the night.
It has sort of the Don Bluth influence in that you can make a film as scary and creepy and depressing as possible as long as you give it a happy ending.
Mind you, I think it was The Empty Child I watched in that. I think I only saw the first half like that, and I'm just like, oh God. Either way, this was one of those series where, yeah, it was a three-way split with two groups of two, and Matt being the odd one out. And Bad Wolf Parting of the Ways is by no means bad. Yeah. Parting of the Ways in particular shines more than Bad Wolf does, I think.
It has a lot of really great moments. What keeps it from being the top for me is that it has some kind of mediocre moments where it's doing its reality TV thing, which
that's
aren't
also
bad,
mostly
but
the first
they're not
part.
top of the line. Yeah.
Also, what stops it for me too is that Rose suddenly becoming all powerful and destroying the Dalek fleet was kind of a Deus Ex, and
it was, but it was Chekhov. It wasn't an ass pull.
Mm-hmm. It was at least vaguely hinted at a couple episodes previous, and they obviously weren't going to come back to that again without destroying Rose. So,
yeah. Mind you, it is probably one of them. Well, actually, every regeneration we've gotten in the new series has been bittersweet.
Mm-hmm.
They've done that very well. They've gotten that. They've managed to level your emotions up. So if you don't have tears in your eyes watching a regeneration scene, what's wrong with you? Christopher Eccleston's whole, I could have taken you to Barcelona bit was really great, really well done, and really kind of a shock if you didn't know that he was leaving at the end of the series. They actually were going to keep that a surprise. And of course it got leaked that he was leaving, so it wasn't overly surprised, but at the same time you're just like, no, we want more.
I did.
But yeah, it's none of these episodes I would have an issue. And of course we all just have our favorites. So let's move on to series. Actually, wow, we're doing quite well.
Okay.
We might get over early and have to talk about stuff.
Oh well.
Oh no, not stuff. I'd rather talk about things.
Us have to talk.
Okay.
Imagine that.
Series 2. So what are your choices? Bill.
So yeah, for series 2, I went with Army of Ghosts Doomsday. It's just that encounter that everybody has wanted to see since the 60s, and it delivered.
All right. Tim?
I was flip-flopping between School Reunion and Tooth and Claw, but in the end I went with School Reunion because it really was a good way to demonstrate just how important Sarah Jane Smith and K9 was to the series, and just how you saw David Tennant reacting to to being reunited with them.
All right, Aaron.
And Tony
I liked,
Head.
yeah, I liked Rise of the Cybermen: Age of Steel. I love the world building. I love the idea of alternate universes and stuff. I wish that the show could have explored it a little bit more, although they do kind of explain why that can't happen, mostly as a
Because
result of a
Cisco's not
time
on that
war.
Earth.
Yeah. So I really liked the whole kind of slightly different, slightly weird Earth that we saw in that series.
All right, Matt.
My pick, and I did flip flop between this and the season finale. I also, like Tim, went with School Reunion. I felt like if we're ever going to revisit what Doctor Who used to be while still keeping it modernized, that was literally the perfect episode, aside from maybe a few little visual hiccups. But otherwise, the
Um,
story was really good, and we still miss Elizabeth to this day now.
yes, we do. And I actually did go with Tooth and Claw, and I did flip flop a lot on this one too,
Mm-hmm.
because pretty much all the ones mentioned here are on my favorite episodes list. Um, Less so Army of Ghosts Doomsday, but not for any particular problem, just because it gets edged out. Um, but School Reunion, I agree with both of you that it is. Uh, uh, Seeing Sarah Jane come back and dealing with the resolution that was kind of left hanging after all these years is a wonderful thing. Rise of the Cybermen: Age of Steel is probably it's one of the really great two-parters. Um, it's For me, I chose Tooth and Claw just because the special effects of that werewolf is unparalleled in anything we have seen, even in most motion picture work.
I
The fact that I
believe.
can see,
Go ahead, Fish.
I can see the freaking follicles on that wolf face.
Mm-hmm.
It's unbelievably cool. You've got monks almost like out of a freaking Hong Kong flick doing stuff, and it manages to still keep the Victorian feel and everything. I really love that episode. It's one of the ones that I look forward to. School Reunion, I also look forward to, and like I said, I was nail biting between those.
Mm-hmm.
Army of Ghosts Doomsday actually doesn't for me, because of the hype cop out on that. And you can see the hype build up in there of Rose going, "This is the story of how I died," and then she doesn't die. She dies on paper, and it's kind of that cop out, hinting at a companion death, and not going through with it that they have been going through to the present series. They've kept hinting that a companion's going to die, and never dies. If you're going to hint at it, go fucking through with it. So that's one of the reasons.
Although in this case, I mean, I never really thought that she was going to fully die because otherwise she wouldn't have been able to narrate it.
But they were heralding it even as early as Impossible Planet. When the creature, the one that claims to be Satan, talks to her and says, "The one who will be dying in battle very soon." They just kept leading up to it, and then didn't go through with it. If you're going to hint up to it that much, you have to go through, or it's going to be seen as a cop out, and so it's a cop out in my opinion. Mind you, that is my only problem with Army of Ghosts Doom.
Mm-hmm.
And
By the
like I
way,
said,
you're cutting out a lot, Randy. Like the ends of your sentences are cutting out a lot.
Okay, I gotta increase my mic gain then.
Um. But
Okay, we'll see how this does.
Okay, but as you were mentioning with the werewolves, I remember I believe they had a Harry Potter movie not long before that episode came out.
Not long after.
Not long after, and in fact,
Yeah.
actually, and those werewolves were terrible. About I want to say 4 years after this, they finally did a remake of the Wolfman, and I'm a huge Wolfman fan. worst Wolfman movie ever made. The visuals weren't even near to what they'd had in Tooth and Claw.
Yeah, I will. No, I will rave about that werewolf to this day, because I remember watching this and going, "Oh my god, that thing is awesome! I can see the fur modeling." It's like,
Mm-hmm. And
wow.
literally the entirety of their effects for this was a guy in a blue suit walking around with an extra pole on top of his head. And when they had to have something flicker when the wolf passed by, they literally just digitally, one area at a time, did it so that someone would fan like the torches or something, so the lights would flicker when you went through.
It was just unbelievably cool, and the acting and all that is top notch. Even at the end where the guy's in the lights going, "Just end it," and I'm a little bit choked at that point. It's just really good episode.
Mm-hmm.
Rise of the Cybermen: Age of Steel, like I said, I also love that one. It has one of the moments that ruined a song for me for years, though, and that is the scene. That's the song. The bit where they're converting people, and to drown out the sounds of people screaming as they're dying, he starts playing "The Lion Sleeps Tonight." I was still living with my mother at the time, and she liked to listen to classic rock or classic music, and occasionally would be going someplace and that song would come on, and I would have to change the channel.
Mm-hmm.
It was that bad. I've gotten
It's
over it now,
terrifying.
but it was horrifying when I saw it. Other than that, my one major problem with Rise of the Cybermen: Age of Steel, and this has actually been an ongoing issue with the Cybermen in the modern era, was them trying to turn delete into exterminate.
Mm-hmm.
I don't mind it so much, but it is obviously the creators of the new Cybermen trying to force that.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
was never a big fan of that.
yeah, that's been one of my ongoing issues with them, is I don't like that.
It
I
didn't seem like
loved
something that fit their personality.
I loved the 80s catchphrase of the cyber leader going, "Excellent." But that was so 80s, it was perfect at the time.
And it was only the leader.
It was only
If-
the cyber leader.
If they were shooting people chanting "excellent" as a war cry, it would have been too over the top.
Oh, it would have been absolutely wrong.
That would have been
It,
terrible, yeah.
it was only the cyber leader responding to orders with "excellent." And you could only, it's one of those things that only could come from the voice of David Banks. So,
There's logic in what he says.
David Banks had the perfect cyber leader voice. He was the absolute perfect cyber leader for that era. I do not know if he would work in the modern era. I don't think he would. I don't think he would have worked in the 60s or 70s. But for 80s cyber leader, he nailed that puppy. I'm trying to think of who I would have gotten to do a cyber leader these days.
I don't know. I think he could still lend his voice to it. He wouldn't. He might not be able to do the actual suit anymore, but I could still see him lending the voice.
Michael Dorn as a Cyberman. You modulate that voice. Possible. Anyway, of course, the main problem is, of course, that the modern Cybermen are all voiced by Nick Briggs, who's the guy that does the Daleks and does like every other alien on the show. And I'm not saying anything against Nick Briggs, but I do like some variety in my voices.
Yeah.
I mean, if you remember the Daleks, they usually used to have 3 voice actors that were doing Daleks. You had the one that did the low Dalek, the medium Dalek, and the high Dalek. Briggs does all those voices now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
of course, in order to do high, medium, and low, all he has to do is do a little flick of the switch.
yeah, I know. All he has to do is do a little flick of the switch or change his own voice with the modulator. But what I'm saying is, though, you could still tell with each of those that there was a separate voice.
Mm-hmm.
The accents were slightly different and everything. and you don't get that with the modern Daleks and the modern Cybermen. So it's just kind of, I don't know. It just feels like it loses a little bit to me. Other than that, Rise of the Cybermen Age of Steel is a great story. It has Mickey's zero to hero moment.
Mm-hmm.
It has, there's a lot of things that are great with the episode.
Yeah, that was another thing that I really liked about it, is the fact that they really built up Mickey's character. Of course, just before he leaves, but
Yeah, he would be reoccurring.
mm-hmm.
Um, but again, you're dealing with a whole bunch of episodes in a series that had quite a few good episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so series 3,
Okay.
and
I would be starting with me, and I went with Human Nature Family of Blood. Just a well put together episode, and yeah, I'm not sure really what to say, but I liked it. Or 2 episodes, I should say.
all right, Tim.
I went with the Shakespeare Code. I love the episodes where he meets actual historical figures, and I love the shout outs to J.K. Rowling as well as the movie Back to the Future. And I thought it was just a good episode all around.
All right, Aaron.
I really enjoyed Utopia, The Sound of Drums, and The Last of the Time Lords.
Now,
Um,
before you go any further, I'd like to point out that yes, we did mention earlier that these are considered 2 separate storylines,
mm-hmm.
but fuck that noise
Yeah.
and go on.
I've always seen them as a 3-parter personally. I particularly like Utopia out of all of them. Um, Derek Jacobi is one of my favorite actors, so seeing him as the master, or seeing him eventually revealed to be the master, which is a great cliffhanger at the end. It had, of course, Captain Jack Harkness is forced to do some selfless sacrificing of his own. You've got Martha kind of fascinated by how advanced the last strands of humanity are, and yeah, it was really great. Just the whole feeling of hope and the building up of the what life would be like at the end of the universe. And then, of course, we see that all come crashing down in The Sound of Drums and The Last of the Time Lords. Last of the Time Lords, I felt, was the most hokey out of them, but it was still interesting enough to hold my attention.
All right, Matt.
I also did the ending trilogy for season 3, and also actually like Arian, I also liked Utopia the best. And yes, that was an epic reveal of a master, and I really wish we had more time with that master, to be honest.
Oh
Because
yeah,
what we got was essentially a sugar high master after that, because apparently he decided to become young and crazy,
I like to think of him as Joker Master,
something
Mm-hmm.
along those
or
lines.
Evil for the Lulls Master.
Yeah.
And yeah, the third episode was a bit hokey, but yeah, there was enough to at least keep you interested and kept you paying attention. But I think the most hokey part of it was literally make everybody think of the Doctor. We can save the Doctor, who can then stop the Master. Ugh.
I think
Mm-hmm.
I got it. I think I've got the problem with John Sims Master.
Hmm.
He's evil, but not sinister.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that feeling of sinister. And if you think about
There are a few
Delgado,
scenes where he does, specifically when he's taunting the doctor over the phone and the doctor's trying to escape, and I felt like he was kind of sinister there, but
not to the level that you normally see the Master being sinister.
Because even with the campy masters, you see them at least being sinister, and you see that there's plans within plans, whereas this was just a whole bunch of hokey.
I mean, you look at Delgado's Master, I am the Master and you will obey me. He exudes sinister.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of just rolled off him like a cloak. And Ainley was sinister, but in a different way. He was very much the Snidely Whiplash against Dudley Do-Right sinister. Almost mustache twirling, and you get that same sinister that Ainley has coming off of Missy.
Yes.
You have that sinister smile and everything, and the middle term masters had the horrible disfigure, but they still managed to pull sinister off.
Mm-hmm.
And then you had Eric Roberts' brief stint as master. And while he started out playing it cool, at the end he was the smug sinister.
Yeah.
After he put on the Time Lord robe and was playing it for cheese, he managed the smug sinister bit.
I always dress for the occasion.
Yeah, that line in particular. And then you get who was it that played that? Derek Jacobi. And he was 6 kinds of sinister from the moment he got his memories back.
You could just see it in his eyes, and from that moment on, you're just like, oh god, what happened?
Yeah. And then you get Sims. Happy, bouncy evil. Sinister is not in that look, but happy, bouncy evil is how I would describe Sims.
Mm-hmm.
That's the same sort of thing with the Sherlock version of Moriarty, and that never quite
Happy,
sat right with
bouncy
me.
evil.
Yeah.
That doesn't quite work with Moriarty either.
It's like being the ADD of evil.
Yeah. And even
but
Joker has tame moments once in a while.
And then you got to Missy, who has that thing. She still has a little bit of the happy, bouncy evil, but she then has the moments where she just smiles and she suddenly emits the sinister, and also the kind of frenemy thing that Delgado. So she's kind of like a fillet of all the masters. She's
right, which is why I really don't get it when people are trying to talk about it. They're like, oh, Missy is nothing like the Master. They should have made her a different character. I'm like, are we watching the same show?
Go back and watch the other Masters. Watch Delgado. Watch that, because you'll see a little bit in each of Missy's
Go
performances.
watch the 5 Doctors, and you'll see exactly where she came from.
Mm-hmm. Because the Doctor and the Master did have that kind of frenemy thing going on.
Scarcely worth imagining.
Mm-hmm.
And the 5th Doctor was the only Doctor he could actually talk with. The
It's
others
just for
saw
the
him
first,
and instantly went, "You."
It's just for this is a touch TMI. This is a touch overshare. It's just for the first time in their relationship, the I try to kill you, you try to stop me whole thing has basically become foreplay. I might have just broke somebody's hamster. I don't know, but that's essentially what it feels like. Doctor, Missy, just go in the corner, make out for a bit, get it out of your systems. You know. We know that's what Missy's looking for, at the very least.
At the very least, what she seems
The
to be
fact
looking
that she
for.
spent most of season 8 referring to the Doctor as her boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
I thought for a moment there that she had, actually fully snapped and gone all creepy stalkerish.
Yeah.
Of course, we didn't actually know it was the Master at that time, and suddenly it made a lot of sense in a very wrong way. Okay, was that your...
That was me.
Okay, so my choice for Series 3 is also Human Nature Family of Blood. Same as Bill's. Mind you, again, this was a close call between Human Nature Family of Blood and Utopia Sound of Drums Last of the Time Lords, because I love both stories. Series 3, I consider to be one of the weaker series.
Yeah.
It has a lot of middle-of-the-road episodes.
Yeah.
And it has a few very good episodes. I'm surprised nobody mentioned Gridlock, which is on that upper list in my opinion.
One thing that is a common thread between Human Nature, Family of Blood, and Sound of Drums, Last of the Time Lords is that you have this long-suffering martyr Martha, where she gets the chance to, where she, essentially the ball is in her court, and she is the one responsible for saving things. Of course, it does, both of them in different ways revolve around the whole Dr. Rose thing, which is a flaw of the writing of the season. But in those 2 episodes, she kind of, despite that, comes out as the hero of the episode, with or without recognition.
Less so in Human Nature, Family of Blood. It's not about Rose.
Human Nature, Family of Blood. Rose is mentioned a few times, but okay, yeah. When you said less so, I was Go ahead.
No, less so being about
Right.
Rose.
Right.
I mean, it only comes about the fact that the doctor. It's more about the fact that she's falling for the doctor, and the doctor's basically giving off, "I'm not interested."
Right.
So that's kind of a companion doctor thing that we've seen in the new series quite a bit. It was why season 4 was so refreshing that Donna was like, "No, I'm not interested. I just want to be friends."
Right.
And the doctor's like, "Okay, I can deal with that."
And of course, they had to ruin it by introducing the doctor's love interest.
The thing is, I had read Human Nature, the original novel that this was converted from, years before this episode came out, because it would have been a freebie on the BBC's website. And it was a Seventh Doctor story back then. And it was written by the same guy that wrote the series, so it wasn't like they just took and ripped off the book. No, they asked the author to come back and rewrite it for the new series. And that's a testament to the quality of that story. And I think that the version that comes out in Series 3 is better than his original writing. It gives more reason, and that because the doctor did it in the book because he was curious, not because he was in danger. And then the whole thing turned out to be a trap. The whole thing, that the Chameleon Arch, it turned out to be a trap by the Family of Blood to capture the essence of a Time Lord, and then they basically came to go claim it in the original book. And here, of course, the Chameleon Arch was just the Time Lord MacGuffin, and they did it to hide from the Family of Blood. And I think that actually made the story slightly better because it gave the Doctor a reason to do so. And a lot of the things about the story are essentially the same thing. Only, of course, the companion, I think, back then was Bernice Summerfield. And there's just so many things of Human Nature, Family of Blood that resonates at me. The boy who...
I'm trying to picture Benny as a servant girl, and it's just not clicking. She would shoot someone.
I don't know if she was in the same role back then. It's been a while since I read the novel. I think she mostly just hung out in the TARDIS.
Yeah.
While the Doctor was off doing his thing, or went off on her own little adventure and came back. But either way, the story revolved around her trying to wake the Doctor back up in a moment of crisis. I think she might have been listed as his niece or something in there. Like the people where he taught knew her as being the Doctor's niece.
Yeah.
Because remember, this was an older Sylvester McCoy.
Right.
Who had just come off of a heart attack in one of his hearts in the story, I think, if I recall. Anyway, I thought it was written better for this story. I love the kid who gets the little leak from the Chameleon Arch talking about his description of the Doctor, while Tennant goes on in horror. It shows the range of David Tennant being able to play both the Doctor and John Smith and snap flawlessly between the two at times. I just loved that episode to death. And I like Utopia Sound and Drum's Last of the Time Lords. It has some epicness in there. It has some songs that have become part of my iTunes playlist, such as I Can't Decide and Here Come the Drums, both of which I purchased off of iTunes specifically to listen to. I Can't Decide in particular I'm very fond of. But I don't know. I just liked Human Nature and Family of Blood better. And as for the Shakespeare Code, I like the Shakespeare Code, but I don't think it's anything special in my book. I like the concept of the Carrionites, but we've never seen anything more with them. I would have liked that.
Although they're going to be facing the Sixth Doctor in Big Finish soon, and that will be interesting because they're a villain that I could really see played with in audio format.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Very much so.
Very much, yeah. I'm actually vaguely interested in that one. But there's been several aliens that have been introduced in Modern Who that we've never gone back to, and I would have loved to seen again. The Vashta Narada, which I think just came out in Big Finish as well.
Yeah,
Are
the same,
one that
same box set.
is one I've also wanted to see them go back to in the series. Okay, so we spent quite a bit of time talking on this one, so let's go on to Series 4. Bill.
So Series 4, I chose Turn Left, and that was a very tricky decision because I tend to, if I'm just skimming through, I'll tend to start with Turn Left and watch the rest of the season, the closing two-parter. But ultimately, I did go with Turn Left, partially just because it feels like a little tighter as a single episode compared to the two-parter,
Hold
which
on
has
a
some
moment, Bill.
floppiness.
Hold
Okay.
on, hold on. I do want to state for the audience that we are including the specials in this. None of us chose any of the specials, but the specials were in consideration for this series.
Right.
Okay, continue.
But altogether, I don't think there's a moment of Turn Left that I don't enjoy in some way, either for entertainment or for action. I think Stolen Earth Journey's End has a few moments that I cannot say that about, so that's why I went with Turn Left.
Okay, Tim.
My pick for this series was Partners in Crime.
The adipose one.
Yes, I just was entertained throughout this episode, and I loved how they were able to keep the jokes fresh and not let it get stale.
Yeah, there's some great comedy in that episode, especially the one where they're trying to communicate through the door and not realizing that they're being watched.
And I love how the running gag of like the Doctor and Donna just missing each other up to that scene. Keep doing that. That's an example of like what I mean by not letting the jokes get stale or overstay their welcome.
Yeah, it was Donna Noble in a nutshell. It was great. Okay, Aaron.
I really liked the Stolen Earth Journey's End. I felt it was actually a pretty darn good ending for Series 4, as well as I really don't think that End of Time really matched that kind of energy that you had at the end of Series 4. I think really that the money that was in time and effort that was poured into the specials could have been better used as like a single movie and stuff. So just kind of comparing that to what was officially the end of Tennant's run compared to like the end of Series 4, I think it just really wrapped everything up nicely. We saw a lot of characters return. We saw a classic villain make his return, and Davros was really kind of fun to watch, except and I realized that he's not really in that control of the Daleks anymore. He's more of a pet than anything. So, and I believe didn't they bring back the Dalek Emperor for that one too?
Yes.
Dalek Supreme.
Yeah,
Dalek Supreme.
it was the Dalek Supreme basically functioning as the Emperor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I felt
as Daleks more want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt it did a better job wrapping up RTD's run than the specials did, that any of the specials did. So, and I highly recommend it.
Okay, Matt.
I also flip-flop between Turn Left and Stolen Earth Journey's End. I decided Stolen Earth Journey's End because I felt it was actually a good end cap for what was going on with that particular season. I would have preferred to actually have kept gone with our current companion at the time, and it was also very nice to see literally everybody we've seen since the beginning of season one, when Doctor Who came back. But it was if nothing else, it was at the very least a bittersweet end cap for Donna, and kind of wish they would have stopped meddling with her, even though they only meddled with her only once after that. And they finally stopped messing around with Rose, except for maybe one or two occasions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They finally buried the Rose hatchet.
And I had to choose the Doctor's daughter in this one. And there's a bit of a story behind that. And that is the fact when I first saw that listed as the next episode, Bill, I'm like, oh my God, this could be terrible. This could be the thing that pisses me off.
Yeah.
And then I watched the episode and I absolutely loved how it was done. There are so many scenes in there that just ring as being epic to me. The doctor, Donna and Jenny in the cell with the doctor talking about what it meant to be a Time Lord and what happened, and just how that went sad really quickly. The end where Jenny gets shot and the doctor grabs the gun and turns it on the bad guy and then, says, let this be a society on the I never would, all of which felt epic to me. It was just one of those things where you see the doctor originally, in denial and then becoming kind of the proud parent and then the trauma, and it just all is like the doctor's life in 10 minutes kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, really liked that. And it's a hard choice for me because Series 4 is my favorite series. It is basically, to this day, it's still Doctor Who at its best for me. The Doctor, Donna, traveling around. There's not much in that series I hate. But the Doctor's daughter for me is a particularly high point. And the Stolen Earth Journey's End is another high point, so it was a close call between them. I also like Partners in Crime as a great meetup, but I don't think it's anything special for me. It's high middle or low high, but it's in that section
It's
for me.
it's a very good footnote for where the rest of the season was going to go.
Right. And Turn Left is interesting for me, Bill, because of the whole concept of what would have happened if the Doctor hadn't been there.
Right.
However, for me, Rose showing up and dealing with it is kind of a cop-out for me. So that was kind of an underpinning for me for the rest of that. Although I do love the fact that it was, that the whole thing about there being something on her back led up to that one and not the finale.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Does anybody else have anything they want to say about the rest of this in Series 4 or any of the others' choices or anything?
I'm not sure if this is the best season to me, but this is definitely one of the better seasons. Out of the 10 or so seasons we're almost at now, this is easily within the top 5, very easily.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, as I said, none of us chose any of the specials, and that's because most of the specials were fairly middle of the road.
Yeah,
The Next Doctor was fun.
it's fun, but not necessary.
Planet of the Dead was also a decent run. Waters of
Setup.
Mars was a bit preachy.
Yes.
And End of Time, I like some parts of the End of Time, but I don't like other parts of it. So.
Yeah, that new master again just. Mm-hmm.
That's part of it. The actual bit at the end, the regeneration bit, I love to death. I've watched it repeatedly.
Yeah.
But that makes me cry. But most of the rest of it, just kind of blah on. Except for the bits with Wilf.
Yeah.
Because Bernard Cribbins is Bernard Cribbins, and Bernard Cribbins is fun.
And because of him, we have the most oh no moment that led up to the regeneration.
The thing that annoys me though is the fact that, the doctor had up and said, he will knock 4 times to Wilf, and he fucking knocks 4 times.
That's what I said. It's like if he had knocked 3 times, history would have been changed. Is what I think. But still, it's all on Wilt. The fact that the Doctor had to regenerate.
So from there, we move on to Series 5.
So for Series 5, I went with The 11th Hour. Even though it would have been outstanding for Journey's End to be the introduction to the 11th Doctor, I think The 11th Hour was a pretty good introduction to it. It introduced a new cast, new TARDIS, new Doctor, had an epic Doctor speech, and I don't really have anything to complain about in that episode.
All right, Tim?
I went with Vincent and the Doctor. I think this is a perfect example of how to do bittersweet. In that the ending is kind of a downer, but it's uplifting at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like I said, I love any episode where they go back in time and meet actual people.
All right, Aaron?
I liked Vincent and the Doctor as well. I enjoyed Vincent as a character as kind of the typical tortured artist. I also agree with Nash Bozard when he talked about the proper way of showing grief. When Amy is walking along with the Doctor and she realizes that she's crying but she doesn't know why, and it's of course just after the episode where Rory dies, is erased from time. So, and I thought its depiction of grief and kind of suffering was pretty poignant, and like Tim said, it does at least have a somewhat uplifting and very bittersweet ending to it. I enjoyed
We
that.
enjoy grief and suffering in our fandom.
All right, Matt?
I, like Bill, went with the 11th hour. I felt that actually this season had didn't go any worse than mediocre, but it went mediocre quite often. If some of it felt samey, but then it would come up back up in little spikes here and there. But 11th hour was the pretty much the takeaway episode. It's the one I can actually really remember that well, and I remember most of it quite fondly.
All right, I also chose the 11th hour. It shows it's a great Doctor introduction episode.
Mm-hmm.
It shows him fumbling around. It's a little bit stupid at first with him having the food issues, but you can enjoy that for what it is. But when it gets into it, you basically see the Doctor being you basically see him learning to be the Doctor through a regeneration again, and it works fairly well up to and including the epic speech to the Atraxi at the end of it. The first time it's also the first time you hear "I am the Doctor."
Mm-hmm.
The probably Murray Gold's best composition work, and the thing that I sit here and play on like our remixes on YouTube all the time, because it is such an epic piece of work. It's very inspiring. I really wish they would bring it back to Doctor Who. I know it's supposed to be the 11th Doctor's theme, but just make it the Doctor's theme.
Yeah, pretty much.
And go with it, because it is a beautiful, wonderful piece of work, and I love it to death. And for me, that was the high point of Series 5. It all went downhill from there. The next couple episodes after that were mediocre, one of which was later discovered to be actually completely and totally ripped off from an earlier Doctor Who, Second Doctor. Then you get the Angels, which pissed me off because he can't keep the same continuity. Venice was mediocre. The Silurian episodes were okay. Those were middle of the road.
Mm-hmm. Those were high middle of the road.
Yeah, they're in that upper middle. And I can't like Vincent and the Doctor personally. I have to go against him and Aaron on this one. I can't like it because it's a very special Blossom episode. It's a freaking after school special. To the fact that they actually have to make the PSA at the end of it. If you have anyone that's dealing with depression, it's like, oh, Jesus Christ, get this out of my Doctor Who.
Undercut the entire message and let me just slit my wrists right now. Thanks, show.
Yeah, that absolutely and totally pissed me off and ruined what would have been a decent episode with that. It absolutely destroyed that episode for me. Because I absolutely detested those very special Blossom style afternoon special episode shit when I was a kid.
Yeah, if that particular ending point wasn't there, it could have ended on a quiet note, and you know what? I would have been fine with it, but then they just undercut everything they were doing with that.
Yes, they did. It's one of the reasons that Vincent and the Doctor is not one of my well-loved episodes, because I can't stand that.
Because they pretty much just ruined their own episode, yep.
Fair enough.
And then I cannot like the finale because it's all about River Song.
What was the finale again? I can't even remember that finale.
Pandorica opens the Big Bang.
Oh, right. Yeah. That was a really hokey finale.
Well, it's the fact that she manages to have a Dalek beg her for mercy.
Wrong.
Yeah, it just absolutely churned my stomach. And the fact that they destroy the universe, but freaking Amy can piece it back together. What the hell?
Deus Ex to the nth degree.
I'm pretty sure that was an excuse for Moffat to say, fuck the continuity.
Pretty much.
And then he went back and reintegrated it all starting in Series 7 anyway, so what the hell? Yeah, I did not like the Pandorica opens the Big Bang.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us into Series 6, which Series 6 encompasses the Impossible Astronaut through the Doctor, the Widow, the Wardrobe. So 6 through the Christmas special. I should say that's. I can't even say that's standard because of the way Doctor Who occasionally will fool around with
on
stuff.
that, yeah.
Yeah. I should mention that Series 5 was the 11th hour through A Christmas Carol, and none of us were going to vote for A Christmas Carol.
None of us were going to choose A Christmas Carol anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So for Series 6, I went with A Good Man Goes to War. It's not a deep episode, but as far as River Song-centric episodes go, it's a very good one. It was, pretty much an action epic of an episode and kind of payoff for the first half of Series 6. And it was, in general, very, very enjoyable and, satisfying payoff for the season up to that point.
All right. Tim?
I went with The Curse of the Black Spot. I thought it was a fun movie of pirates in space, as well as in a good example of what one of the things Doctor Who does best, in that it shows you things that like make you think one thing, but then it turns it on its head by the end. And the idea that this phantom ghost lady is actually a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
There's I like those sort of like twists in the series as a whole, and I think this is a good example of that.
Okay. Aaron?
I really liked A Good Man Goes to War because it's yet another, like with the Journey Ends, with Stolen Earth. It's very kind of an ensemble cast. Even though a lot of these characters we haven't met before, we have a potential of expanding upon the story and the universe and explaining where they came from, their background stories, and especially with the Predator regulars, Strax and Lady Vastra and Jenny. They do make further appearances, and we could dig a little bit deeper into their backgrounds. I know Randy doesn't like it because it's about River Song, but to me, it's kind of gives a little bit more depth to River Song, and of course, there's always that kicker of a reveal at the end. So I thought that was pretty well done. I was kind of excited when they revealed the whole thing with that. So I liked it.
All right, Matt.
I went with the doctor's wife. I'm I will go into more detail, I think, about season 6 because I think me and Randy are kind of eye to eye on that one. But in particular, the doctor's wife was the breath of fresh air that even bothered to keep me around. And the fact that it was written by a expert writer named Neil Gaiman did not hurt anything. And it was also the reason he would come back occasionally since then. And it was just the one really good episode of the season, just perfectly written, very nice, and it's actually a well-contained episode too. So you can actually get everything, and because it references everything it needs to reference within the episode.
I very much agree with Matt. The Doctor's Wife is also my pick because it's the one shining point in a sea of crap that is Series 6 to me.
Yeah.
Series 6 is by far the low point of Doctor Who for me. Series 6 and most of Series 7. But The Doctor's Wife is a wonderful episode. It is a filler episode. It has nothing to do with the rest of the series, which is to its benefit, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
It is a Neil Gaiman written episode that basically deals with the Doctor's relationship with the TARDIS. It is very beautifully done, very sentimentally done. It establishes certain things that beforehand we had only guessed about, like the fact that regenerations can cross gender lines was in there. It referenced old classic Doctor Who episodes, such as the cube that is the Time Lord emergency transmission thing that we saw way back in the War Games. It basically was a beautiful, sentimental episode that I love to death. The reason I say that the rest of Series 6 is a sea of crap is the fact that the rest of Series 6 is all about River Song. It is the River Song story.
And it's a story I could care the hell a lot less about.
There are episodes that rate mediocre on me. The whole thing about the Rebel Flesh is mediocre, but it's decent mediocre.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. The hotel one is mediocre, but it's decent. A Good Man Goes to War is the best of the river centric episodes, but it's still a river centric episode,
and because it's so tightly wound around River Song, just makes all the good stuff just feel like it's rubbish anyway.
Yeah,
because essentially it's robbed of all of its good intentions and just wasted and dashed upon the ground and stomped upon.
Well, I'm not as harsh as Matt is. Apparently, you chose the wrong person to bring this up to. Because
I hate season 6.
Yeah, I agree with you for most of it. I hate the wedding of River Song more than I hate the rest of it. But yeah,
I like the
series...
I like the wedding of River Song because it ended it. Just so it got rid of it.
But for me, there was more of that. We still got 3 series to go. We got 15 minutes left, so let's go forward to Series 7. Bill, actually, first of all, statement. Series 7 starts with Asylum of the Daleks, goes through the Snowmen, through the second half, and ends on Name of the Doctor, or Time of the Doctor. Okay, so go ahead, Bill.
Yep. All right, so I went with Day of the Doctor, the 50th anniversary special. It's a great epic episode, and we've already said a lot on it in the past, so that's about all I'll say now.
All right, Tim?
I went with A Town Called Mercy. I love a good Western, and I think this has the coolest resolution of any episode of New Who I've seen.
All right. Aaron?
Well, it was kind of a draw between Day of the Doctor for me and Name of the Doctor, but I went ahead and went with Name of the Doctor almost solely for the end of it. Mostly because I really like Clara's character in there. I don't see her as a character to be jealous of. I see her as something that the fans are supposed to identify with, so that when she's standing by and pointing to the TARDIS that the Doctor should take, we kind of feel like we're there with her. And I kind of felt that kind of goes throughout the entire show. And then, of course, you've got the big stinger of John Hurt, the late John Hurt, showing up as the War Doctor. So we had no idea who he was. There was so much speculation, and it was just a great cliffhanger that was eventually resolved by the Day of the Doctor. But, yeah, I thought both of them were just great.
All right, Matt?
So I'm going to start this off on a personal note that I really, really wanted this to be Nightmare in Silver. It's another Neil Gaiman story, very well done. He literally took the Cybermen from being used to the point of mediocrity and actually brought them back as horrifying monsters. And literally resurrected one of my favorite Doctor Who monsters. Did a very good story and brought in characters that I really wanted to see come back. But that being said, this was the anniversary year, and Day of the Doctor stole it. Day of the Doctor brought in everything we wanted to do, and even brought in more of the war that we were always wondering about, the Time War, and gave us another Doctor that we didn't know that we wanted.
All right. I also have to go with Day of the Doctor because Day of the Doctor is the gold standard for Doctor Who episodes now. It is the high bar. It is to me, it is still the greatest thing that has appeared in Doctor Who airwaves. You have 3 Doctors, which we've seen before, but the interplay between all 3 of these is unbelievably good. When they did the 3 Doctors back in 75, Hartnell was very sick and could only appear on a camera, so he didn't get much of the moment-to-moment dialogue that we got between 2 and 3. Here we've got 2, 3, and War all interacting with each other more or less constantly, and it works very well. The fact is that they only had to write 1 companion at the time too, because the other 2 were companionless. Really helped because it helped not to have to overload the story.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a very good story that tied up some loose ends that have been hanging around since Russell T left. And it was an ultimate feel-good episode. I can't like Nightmare in Silver for this kind of thing, Matt, because of the kids.
I completely forget about the kids.
They're in there. I can't like Name of the Doctor, Aaron, because while the ending was good, it had nothing to do with the rest of the episode, which was mostly crap about, hey, I'm dead on this planet. Here's this beam of energy, which is essentially my corpse. Here, let's jump into that. It just,
Yeah, facepalm.
Yeah, it made no sense to me. And while that ending bit was good,
yes,
it was irrelevant to the rest of the episode, which was just a hot mess.
And then the Christmas special retconned it out of happening, which is probably good because they never explained how they went from the end of that episode to the beginning of the following one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which should have been nigh impossible.
However, am with Tim on A Town Called Mercy. That, out of all of the season 7 episodes, is my favorite, although Rings of Akaton is growing on me.
Yes, very much so. I always like Rings of
Akaton. To say that I would have gone with like one of the anniversary specials, like either Day or Time, except like just to me, I like hold them as separate from the rest of the season.
But that's the entire thing, though, is that they're not.
We have to include the specials in here because otherwise we would have to have like 30 entries. So
yeah. So
we're folding them in here. For me, Day is still the best. Mercy is probably the best of the regular series episodes.
If it wasn't for a few visual effects that I could have done better, it was otherwise a very good story.
Yep.
And the practical effects were actually really well done.
Okay, so anybody else have anything to say about Series 7? All right. Let's go ahead to Series 8. Series 8 encompasses Deep Breath through Death in Heaven. There's no Christmas special involved in this one.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And Bill.
So Series 8 was a very mixed bag. It had some fairly good and some fairly bad episodes, but by far, I would say Dark Water, Death in Heaven at the end of the season just blew everything else that came before it out of the way and was one of the best season finales we had since Series 4.
All right.
If not even better.
All right. Tim?
So Cyber Brigadier.
I'm gonna go with Time Heist. This was just a fun episode from beginning to end, and I loved how it introduced what were supposedly one-shot characters and the two people he got to do the Time Heist with, and that they were so fleshed out within such a short time that you got to know and care about these people.
All right. Aaron?
I'm going to go with the Dark Water, Death in Heaven, mostly because of the regeneration of Missy from the Master. Again, another big reveal at the end of the season, and something that just kind of broke up some of the monotony of the regeneration cycles that we were seeing. So, by introducing a male character who had regenerated into a female character, and we've seen that again in the most recent series too, with one of the I believe it's the captain of the guards.
The general, I think.
The general or so regenerated from a man into a woman.
And the concept was first introduced in Neil Gaiman's episode, The Doctor's
with the Corsair.
Wife. Yep.
Yeah, they mentioned the Corsair that every time he regenerated, he switched genders.
Yeah, that was off screen though. That was only through the doctor saying.
Yeah, it was only when the doctor giving an anecdote. You didn't see it, but you heard him talk about it.
No.
So that established it as canon, and then they would come to actually use it in this season. All right. Was there anything else you wanted to say?
Nope.
Matt.
I had Time Heist was also a very close number 2. I really liked the characters in it, and I wish that we'd come back to some more of that because that was some really good stuff. But my overall barn burner was Dark Water, Death in Heaven. That just stole all of the show. And even in a season where we actually had what could be legitimately the worst episode of the new Doctor Who era, this completely made me forgive all of that.
Which episode is that?
The worst episode?
Yeah.
The worst episode would have been Journey to the Center of the TARDIS. Or actually, was that this season before?
Nope, that was 7th season.
That was 7th season. Never mind.
That was 7th.
Eight was the really mediocre one, and then this completely forgave all the mediocrity.
Eight had Listen and the one with the moon being an egg. Yeah,
Kill the Moon.
Yeah.
And in the Forest of the Night were kind of the 3 low marks for this one. And yeah, I have to go with Aaron and Matt is Dark Water, Death in Heaven being the great barn burner here. There were some good episodes in Series 8. You had Time Heist, which I love. You have Mummy on the Orient Express, which I love.
Very solid.
But neither one of those two can compare to the series finale, which was absolutely mind-blowing. Of course, it also has Danny Pink die, which is great because I hated Danny Pink.
Thank goodness he's out of the way.
But you have everything, and he manages to redeem himself as a character at the end of this too, but only posthumously.
Yeah.
But you have all of this. You have the reveal. You have the Doctor realizing who he is after an entire season. It's an absolutely beautiful set of episodes. And it's just absolutely wonderfully placed, wonderfully done. And it just manages to outshine Time Heist or Mummy on the Orient Express. So it is, for me, the high part of Series 8. I love Time Heist. I love the feel. I love the characters, just as Tim said. But this did better. And from here, we go to... And this is the one that was almost a unanimous. This was 4 versus 1.
It was 4, yep. That was, I thought the best we had was 3, but yeah, we had 4 with that one.
And here we go to Series 9.
Which I
And
don't
this
think
is the easy. This is the interesting one because nobody voted the
Yes.
same on this one.
because this was a very good series.
And to be honest, the ones that everybody voted on were ones I was thinking of.
Yeah, pretty much same.
And by the
So-
way, this one goes. This is Series 9. This includes Last Christmas and goes through Husbands of River Song. So there's 2 Christmas specials in this one, bookending the series.
So I went with the Zygon Invasion, Zygon Inversion. It's a pretty strong story. It's one of the better unit stories out there, especially post Third Doctor era. Just does great things with the Zygons, some real suspense, a very unique tone, and just a great episode all around.
Not to mention some great bits of dialogue said by Capaldi. The whole speech he gave. They had John Hurt read that at a convention once, and that was a very interesting spin on it.
Yeah.
And yes, it is a very strong episode and one I considered. But Tim, you're next.
I went with The Girl Who Died, The Woman Who Lived. I love just the idea of how this introduces concepts like what the Doctor can do versus what the Doctor is willing to do, as well as it toes with the idea of what would happen if a non-Time Lord is given the gift of immortality, and that or the idea that what happens when a person with a memory that was only designed for one lifetime is given the gift of immortality, and how that really affect someone's personality over the years.
Yeah. And this was also another one. The thing is that's actually 2 episodes that you've listed because those were not actually 2-parters, but I can see why you would choose both of them because they were very closely tied to each other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, my bad.
It's okay. It's an easy mistake to make, especially this season where almost all the episodes were 2-parters.
I don't know. I think that if we're including Utopia and whatnot all together, I think we can make an exception for this one too.
I didn't say I was going to negate what he said. I was just pointing that out. Officially, those are 2 separate episodes, but I can see why that they would be lumped together because they kind of bookend each other perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I had considered one or the other of those 2 when I was thinking. But Aaron, it's your go.
Okay, so I went with the Husbands of River Song, which I believe was included, right?
Yes.
Yes, it was.
It was
Okay.
That's the final episode
Mhm.
of this season. Yep.
Yep. So I thought it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed River Song in this one. I enjoyed Nardal. For how briefly we saw him. Yeah, I thought it was an overall, and I thought the dialogue was kind of witty. And I don't know, and also kind of again the bittersweet ending. That's it.
All right, Matt.
My number 1 for season 9 was Heaven Sent. Technically, this bleeds into Hellbent, and Hellbent was an okay closer, but in particular, Heaven Sent was the better episode. It was very much a Doctor-centric episode. It showed a lot of Capaldi's acting chops, and also kind of delved into the psyche of the Doctor a bit more than we usually get to see, as he's slowly piecing things together and struggling to get out of this death trap.
I hope it was a Doctor-centric episode because he was the only one there.
He wasn't the only one there. There was something else following him.
You know, you say you like this one better than Hellbent, but I liked it better. I liked Hellbent better than this one. So did Bill.
Yeah.
And you actually rated both of these the same, as did Aaron. Tim was the one that liked this one better, and I had my reasons for not liking this one at the
You
time.
can rate it the same and still like it better because we don't do like the 0.1 and
Yeah,
such.
I know.
Yeah, this would have been like a 0.75, 25 better. I'm pretty sure. This is the one I liked better out of the two.
Well, for me, it's all a very hard season because there's only one episode that I didn't really like in this particular season, and that was Sleep No More.
Yeah, pretty much.
For me, I had to choose the opening 2 episodes. The Magician's Apprentice, which is familiar, just because I loved the dialogue between the Doctor and Davros, where, at one point they're against each other, and the next point they're talking like they're old friends. I mean, yes, it has this curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal, but then the Doctor does the haha, I expected your betrayal anyway, But it still was a great episode. You had some great dialogue between Missy and Clara. It just felt good from the beginning. And like I said, this is one of many good episodes, and I like Hellbent better just because I love dealing with Gallifrey. And I also seriously considered the Husbands of River Song, even though it's a River Song episode, it's one I really, really like. It's just so hard to choose from any of these because they're all really, really, really good episodes.
Except that one.
Well, no, I'm talking about the ones that we picked.
Oh, yeah.
It's very hard to choose a favorite. I would just say watch Series 9. Just hit the skip button on Sleep No More.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a self-contained episode anyway, so you can skip it and not worry.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's actually where we're going to have to come to an end here.
Yeah.
Because we're at about our stopping mark.
Yeah.
Wow, it's a good thing we started as early as we did.
So next week we won't be joining you because it is our between season break. But you can join us the following week where we will start to look at the first of the two 2009 specials that we have not yet covered.
I know Erin's rolling her eyes in the other room because she doesn't like those, but we have to cover them eventually.
Yep.
And we've got 2 weeks before the start of the new series, so it's a great place to throw them.
Yep. And it gets Mars covered.
Yep.
With water.
All right, so take us out.
Yep. So if you enjoy listening to us, please go ahead and like the video to show your support and subscribe on Twitch and YouTube so you can keep listening to us. You can also follow us for news and updates on Facebook and Twitter. And if you want to support us, you can go on over to patreon.com/unearthlypodcast.
And in 2 weeks, we go back to the David Tennant era and celebrate Easter with the start of our 8th season of broadcasting as we deal with planet-devouring creatures in Planet of the Dead with David Tennant and what was her name?
Oh, I forget. She was only there for that episode because it's
Yes,
special.
she was. Michelle Ryan as Lady Christina D'Souza. So we'll see you in 2 weeks. Have a good week off. I know we will.
See you all next time.
Bye-bye. Oh.